Good morning, everyone. This Wednesday, we will begin our Adult Ed Zoom discussion of Revelation, the book of Revelation, at 7 p.m. And in anticipation of that, I wanted to read a few paragraphs from the essay, A Story with Dragons, by Kathleen Norris. And it's in her book called The Cloister Walk. Kathleen Norris is a writer, moved to South Dakota in the 1980s, and spent a lot of time in a Benedictine monastery. And in a Benedictine monastery, there is something called the Lectio, where for hours a day, and often during meals, Scripture is read aloud. And so there's a lot of hearing of Scripture. There's a certain amount of reading of Scripture that is expected from people in the monastery. But more than that, it's the hearing, it's the auditory experience of Scripture. And so she talks about reading Revelation while in a Benedictine monastery. And this is what she says. We often use the word apocalypse to mean catastrophic destruction, and cosmic upheaval is evoked in Daniel, in the book of Revelation, and several gospel passages in images of earthquake, fire, plague, the sun and moon darkening, the sea turning to blood, and stars falling from the sky. But destruction is not what the word apocalypse means. And it is certainly not the heart of the message, which is hope for persecuted or oppressed communities in crisis, hope for those on the losing end. As I listened to the book of Revelation over several weeks, I found in it a healing vision, a journey through the heart of pain and despair and into hope. And I was consistently reminded of how subtly this vision works on us. It asserts that the evils of this world are not incurable, that injustice does not have the last word. And that can be terrifying or consoling, depending on your point of view, your place in the world. Like prophetic language, the images of apocalypse are meant to make us feel uncomfortable. That is their value to us, especially in a culture that has come to worship comfort. Using an apocalyptic lens, one might say that the desolation of a slum reveals who we are as a nation, a people, far better than the gleaming stores of a shopping mall. We are forced to look at what remains when pretense, including our pretense to affluence, is taken away. But apocalypse as a form of prophecy not only reveals the fault lines of the status quo, it takes our true measure with regard to it. The discomfort we feel when the boundaries shift is the measure of our allegiance to the way things are. Apocalypse takes us far beyond the usual bounds of language and custom. If you've ever experienced the strangeness of being a healthy person in an intensive care unit or a hospice or nursing home, then you have experienced apocalypse in some sense. The world turned upside down, inside out, revealed as radically different from what we thought we knew. All the things we value so highly, productivity, control of mind and body, the illusion of personal autonomy, suddenly swept away. And our response to this revelation, whether it depresses us and makes us want to run, or whether we can discern hope and love and grace in this strange new place, is a measure of our true condition. It reveals us to ourselves. Dragons within and dragons without. That's what Revelation is. Evil so pervasive that only the poetry of apocalypse can imagine its defeat. And to do that, it takes to the limits of metaphor, of human sense, the limits of imagining and understanding. It pushes us against all our boundaries and suggests that the end of our control, our ideologies, our plans, our competence, our expertise, our professionalism, our power, is the beginning of God's reign. Let me read that again. It pushes us against all our boundaries and suggests that the end of our control, our ideologies, our plans, our competence, our expertise, our professionalism, our power, is the beginning of God's reign. It asks us to believe that only the good remains at the end and directs us toward carefully tending it here and now. We will sing a new song. Singing and praise will be all that remains. As a poet, that's a vision and a promise that I can live with. We'll see you on Wednesday.